All right, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board. Today is Wednesday, September 26th. It is now 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Sean Poole.
Here.
Member Laurie Simpson.
Here.
Member Randy Stout.
Here.
Member Bob Breedlove.
Here.
Member Phyllis Gray. Let the record show that Phyllis Gray is not present tonight. Member Claudia Smith.
Here.
Member Thomas Brown.
Here.
Thank you. All right, a little housekeeping first. We have board members, we have minutes from our meeting on April 12th in front of you. Do we have any conversation and or motions regarding that?
I have two corrections.
Okay?
On page 2, third paragraph up from the bottom, it says it suggests that tenants do no allow their children to play in the streets. That needs to be changed to not. And then on the last page, where it says member Bob Breedlove made a motion to oppose. I didn't, I made a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn, correct.
So those two corrections would need to be made to bring the record current, correct?
Fantastic. Any other conversation?
What was the date
Up.
of that meeting? 4/12/18.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve as corrected.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any announcements from staff? I don't have any announcements here. Okay. All right. Today's business is regarding the request from H&M Storage LLC to amend the future land use map. Who would like staff? First, can I hear from staff? Bill.
Good evening. Make sure this is working here. My name is Tammy Brana with Brana Consulting, and I'm here tonight representing the city. So I'll go through the particulars of this amendment, and then afterward, if the applicant wants to come up and add anything to it, then we'll turn it back to the board, and you can discuss and then ask any questions that you'd like.
Fantastic.
So I'll go ahead, and this is behind me, so I have it on my screen, so I won't turn around, but, so as you said, this is a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment regarding H&M Storage LLC. The request by the applicant is for the approval of the amendment to change the future land use map from the public, semi-public land use category to the commercial mixed-use category. And their intent is to develop the property with recreational vehicle and boat storage. The property is located at 8020 Washington Street, which is the northeast corner of Washington Street and Pine Hill Road. The site area is 1.69 acres. This slide shows the site, and we'll talk about the surrounding property characteristics. So you can see the aerial photograph where the property is located on the north. Is it not loud enough? Oh, this is me. Thank you. I'm changing here for myself and not for the rest of you, so remind me. So you'll see that the property is boxed in. It's the northeast corner of Washington Street and Pine Hill Road, and there's a Google image picture of the existing use, which is a church. The surrounding property characteristics are as follows. The property to the north is a retail store and warehouse. To the south is multifamily and single-family neighborhoods. To the east is a warehouse, and to the west is a warehouse and professional services. The future, and there are maps in the back of your packet, I'm sure you've seen, that also showed this graph, or from a map perspective. The future land use designations surrounding the property are all commercial mixed use, except for to the south, which is a residential future land use. The zoning designation is likewise, it's commercial C3, which is also the same zoning as for the site itself, but to the south is the R3, residential R3 district, and also the R2 district. And this is just a picture of the existing land use, which we don't need, I've discussed those already, but they're there for you to, we can go back and forth if we need to later on. So this is the future land use map, and then the zoning map. So as far as the proposed site development, the applicant, as I had mentioned, is proposing to build recreational vehicle and boat storage facility. Their plan is to demolish the church that's on the site and the vehicular areas, which are composed of asphalt, and to construct an 18,750 square foot building to accommodate the proposed use. They're also intending to use a large amount of gravel in place of the existing asphalt to help with the drainage of the area. The proposed future land use category of mixed use is described in the comprehensive plan. It would allow the type of use that's being proposed by the applicant, but it also allows the full range of uses that are allowed under the commercial mixed use area. The reason that the property owner, it has the zoning in place, but the future land use designation of public, semi-public did not allow for a commercial use that was being operated by a private entity. So that needed to just come into conformance. So the reason why, they already have the zoning. Typically these things come in pairs. You'd look at the future land use map, and then you'd also entertain a rezoning. In this particular case, the zoning for commercial uses is already there. Under the commercial mixed use category, the maximum floor area ratio, which is the amount of building area, regardless of the number of floors, to the overall property area, is a 0.60. It also allows residential uses within the commercial mixed use area, but that's not, so take into consideration that in the future, years and years down the road, that this category could allow other commercial uses. It also could allow residential. So the current public, semi-public classification allows a floor area ratio of 0.5. This current proposal of commercial mixed use would bump it up to a 0.6, so it's slightly higher. Also, although this is not indicated in there's no impervious surface ratio standard in your comprehensive plan, but I went ahead and just threw it out there that the impervious surface area on the site today is 0.47, and it would rise slightly to 0.54 with the proposed development. And I'll also add that the proposed development would need to come back to the city for site plan review and to address the particulars of a more detailed site plan. And there has been no public, well, I'm going to turn it over to Veronica. I'll ask, has this been advertised, Veronica? This public hearing?
It has been advertised.
And have you received any public input?
I have gotten several calls regarding what their intentions were to put on the parcel, and I explained that it was going to be storage, and they were all for it. There was no negative feedback, no opposing of it.
So we looked at the site in terms of the city's ability to provide service at an adequate level of service to this site. And we looked at stormwater drainage, transportation, potable water, the supply, as well as the ability to treat the water, wastewater treatment, and solid waste. And with a redevelopment site, you always take into consideration what was on the property and the difference between what was there and what is being proposed. And so in that particular case, it's a very small difference, and in some cases, for instance, with transportation, the number of trips that would be generated by the site would actually be lower than for a church. So we looked at all of those infrastructure standards, and in all cases, the city is going to be able to serve this site. So we looked at the comprehensive plan policies, because every proposal for development within your community and also your expenditures on infrastructure needs to be complementary or consistent with your comprehensive plan. There wasn't anything specific to a storage use or an industrial use that really would inform how the board may look at this proposal. But there were a lot of policies that, in your packet, that related to neighborhood character. So in this particular case, there is the immediately adjacent residential neighborhoods, including the new Abigail Court over 55-plus development that I'm sure you've all had a chance to drive by. So during the site plan review process, there can be attention to how that interface with the proposed development, how it looks and how it kind of blends into the residential area. But as far as the other sides of the property, it's all pretty much consistent with the existing land uses on the site, or around the site. Oh, comprehensive plan policies, you have these in your packet. It's just simply restated from your staff report. So based on that, the staff's recommendation is that the board recommend approval of the request to amend the comprehensive plan to change the future land use map from the public, semi-public, future land use category to commercial mixed use, being that it's consistent with all applicable cities' policies and standards for such an amendment. And with that, I'll sit down and, or that's you, I guess you would.
Thanks. At this time, we can hear from the applicant if you'd like to speak.
Briefly,
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Philip Chestnut. I'm 8039 Island Drive in Port Richey's my address. I'm here representing the entity, the developer, owner. And at this point, just as Ms. Varana stated, the site plans, the drainage plans, all of that is being processed now, will be finalized depending on this decision. So there's been a lot of input with the city, and we understand going forward we have to, finish that. But if there are any, I'll just end on that note. If there are any specific questions any of you have of what we're doing or what the project is, I'll be more than happy to address them. Yes, sir.
Will the site use much water and produce much sewerage?
None at all, say none at all. No, sir, it will not. It will strictly be, the only water that would be used would be for landscaping, irrigation or for our landscaping. We will have our initial design is showing just a very small minimum office that would be one single handicap restroom that would just be for the tenants' use. And beyond that, that would be it. There would be no other, we have no solid waste at all. There's no dumpsters there. There's nothing there. This is going to be a covered, nice looking covered RV boat type storage. This is not going to be a fenced yard with a bunch of trailers in there. So it will be very, very little.
Will the cross on the steeple be taken down respectfully or just knocked off?
The church,
Yeah,
it will be totally removed one time.
but you don't know how they're gonna remove that cross.
We are, if it's up to the demolition people, but we are certainly respectful of that and would be more than happy to, we have no,
The easiest way would be a wrecking ball.
yeah, but if there's a respectful way to do it, we certainly will consider that. It's not we've seen it. We've even talked to another church about giving them the steeple. I mean, they can move it. They're more than welcome to have it. It would serve us well, and we would be, I think, out of respect for that, we'd be more than happy to do that. So, but initially, in answer to your question, it's a demolition. But we'd respect anyone's, request. If there's an idea, you have something on that, we'd be more than happy to work with anyone.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from
I do.
the board?
Yes.
Yes, Claudia.
Is there gonna be one or two entries?
Initially, we are planning on one entry in off of, bear with me on the plan, I don't have them in front of me, but there is one entry in off of Washington that will be a gated entry with a controlled entry coming off of Washington. We may have a gate, an emergency gate of some sort on Pine Hill. Would have to go back and look at the plans, but it's not for traffic because of the site, the drainage plan that we have there. It really restricted us from having going out on two different roads with that space to the east. is really more, is kind of committed to the drainage site plan for the, you know, the project. And we may have a small gate going out on Pine Hill, but it would not be for general traffic, for boat traffic, for anything like that. It might be just the second gate to be able to open that and go out there. But the primary intent is to have one primary entry coming in off of Washington. And that would be, it's in far enough where a vehicle can come in off the road, will not block traffic. There'll be a gate pad, and that we've, you know, we've already taken that into consideration on our design.
That was my second question, is how much room where
Yes,
when they're
ma'am.
pulling in, they're not
Yes.
blocking.
We factored in there's standards for that, and we have factored that into our design, our site plan design.
Bob? The survey enclosed is hard to read. What are the elevations of the site, and what is the flood elevation?
I don't have it in front of me, but it's very low. That's one reason that we're not building anything that, I'm gonna do this from, I'm just gonna guess from this, but it takes, and I have 2 to 3 foot of fill to build anything in there, so it is very low. And these are, so it's, I wanna say 8 foot, some places 8 foot, and you have to take it up to maybe 12 foot or wherever, and that's the reason that we're going the way, what we're doing is basically driven by the drainage, and it takes so much fill in order to elevate. If you were doing enclosed storage, but we're doing strictly open storage with no, it's strictly open. So that doesn't have the same, it's not the same construction element components that we would. We have a small office. That office is being elevated with ramps coming up to it. We have to bring it up with handicap ramps and coming up for that, and like a mechanical room for our electronic security equipment, things like that. So it is very low. It's too low in order for us to justify it economically to build storage. I don't think many people want to go uphill to get into a self-storage unit. It just doesn't work well. So it is very low, and that, because it does slope back to the east, it goes down, you know, it is low over there.
Is that tree line behind the building going to be gone? The next is that big pond.
The big pond, we are part of, the big pond is part of our boundary. Our property line goes out into that pond. The trees and the site plan for our landscape plan and that type of thing, that will all be addressed on the east side. There's no trees to the rest of it. It's all pavement. It's where the church is. Back to the east, we do have to address that, what trees can be removed, what we have to put on the site and the landscaping. That'll be part of our landscape plan that we have to, again, finalize with the city, so that will be addressed. We do own part of that pond, but we're not really able to use that pond. The city owns the other part of it, but our retention issues are pretty much self-contained within the site. That's the way it's being engineered.
Sure.
I hate to beat it to death, but I do have a couple questions. Bill, building in the floodplain with an open, tight structure like this, they're not required to come up to a flood elevation?
No, sir. I think that's one of the reasons that there's property.
Right,
that was
but what about
developed
the
this way.
floor? Is it allowed to be concrete? Is it gonna all be gravel?
I
If it were
believe the parking
concrete,
lot's
would it have to be
gravel, is it
raised?
not?
No, it is not concrete. It will be the gravel or crushed stone type of component for the
So that's
flooring.
allowed?
Yes, sir.
And there is, it'll be some asphalt, some gravel, and then some crushed concrete. And the Swift Mud application, I might add, in following up with your question, there is a Swift Mud application involved in this that has been filed as well. It's well to the end of it. It's on hold. That application, our site plan, are both filed. We will finalize the Swift Mud depending on the outcome of this decision and the city's decision on the land use, then we'll finalize the Swift Mud application, which is prepared. It's been submitted, and it's being held until we tell them to go ahead and finalize it. We have some final comments to make to that, but that is addressed in the Swift Mud application, and that's obviously a requirement the city has. That has to come flow back to the city, and they need that back in turn to go hand in glove with our site plan.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
If you could help me visualize what this is gonna look like, are we talking, we're just talking about a roof or roofs, right? And this is gonna be made out of aluminum?
It'll be or metal type of, metal top with a, it'll be a metal framing going up and be closed in on, part of it will be closed in. We have the facility, H&M Storage owns the facility across the street, the storage stations. That's our property as well. And we have 10 covered spaces there, and that type of facility there is pretty much mirrored what we're putting across the street. And so it's not it's just not a minimum little covered type thing. It'll be up 14 foot or so high with, it'll be a galvanized steel of some sort.
It's a pre-engineered steel building, is basically what it is, Randy. It's got steel columns.
And there'll be four, our site plan will call for 4 different 10-unit at different places to allow for parking and for ingress and egress. So it's not, it'll be a 3 series and then 1 going horizontal. So it calls for 4 10-space.
And you're trying to accommodate RVs and folks on trailers, basically?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And then, just one more question, is there, I'm assuming there's gonna be a fence around the property? What's
Yes,
that
sir, it
gonna
will
look
be a
like?
security fence. We have not finalized the, it'll be aesthetically nice, you know, it'll be a nice looking fence. We have a couple of different plans we're looking at. The city is gonna have some input, I'm sure, on what they would like to see there as part of the aesthetics of the site and with the landscaping. So it will be fenced, security lighting, security cameras, that type of thing. It'll be a nicer looking facility.
You know, nice, like a white vinyl fence?
Not planning on, I don't know that I haven't really finalized the type fence or exactly what we're putting in there, but we want it to look nice, but we also have to concern ourselves with security. And we're looking at different,
I believe the one across the street that he owns is black wrought iron.
it's a chain link
Yeah.
type with the strands of barbed wire on top. And we may or may not go with that same, we may go with something that's a little, you know, because it'll show a lot more.
Right. And will there be any parking areas that won't have the roofing on?
There could be. There are, if there's room outside, because of our drainage and our site plan, right now, there could be some. A lot of that'll be addressed in the final site plan. There can be some. It won't be a lot because there isn't room for it. There will be parking for auto, we have to have so many parking spaces provided as part of our site plan to meet the city rules on that, and we have addressed that as well for cars, clients that come in and want to park and go to their unit or leave their car overnight or come in to rent a unit or something of that type. There could be some outside parking if it's up and done and there's some room to put a space or a few spaces, but it will not be a lot of it. It'd be very minimal if there is.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Bill, am I correct in assuming that the site plan will come back for the board anyway, once we
Yes.
get that far?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, the site plan will come back through?
Yeah, this is just the land use.
Yeah, this is,
Okay.
like I said, this is just land use. I was just sharing probably maybe more than I just wanted to.
That's fine.
give
We
you
asked
folks-
plenty of questions.
Yeah, give you folks a visual on what our intent is. Now, you know, what we end up with, or it's just us working with
Sure.
the city, and we're well into that process with the
Yep.
city. There's a lot of work been done, and we've been working with staff already, and we put it on hold till this piece is finished, then we'll go back to that. But there's already been a lot of work with the city at this point, city and the planning, and your director of
Perfect.
planning.
John, I apologize. I don't believe it does need to come back
Okay.
to the council.
Yeah, once this is, as long as it
Yeah,
meets
it's- right.
city codes, everything else is fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
One last question for the city, maybe the attorney or maybe the clerk. What will be the impact on the tax base for this property? Will it increase taxes or will it decrease taxes?
Presently, it's it's a church, right? So they're not paying any taxes.
Yes, we are. It's changed this year. I wish I could say we weren't.
No, I'm saying right now it's a church.
Right now, as a church, it's
Church, they're not
zero.
paying any taxes.
The,
He's gonna pay
With
taxes.
the same assessment, trim notice, it's a little over $5,000 as it sets as a church.
as it sets
Yeah, I
now.
didn't mean to jump ahead of you.
That's part of it.
But, yes, it's zero taxes up to this point. I tried to look reverent in that, but I didn't work. But it will not, it's no longer obviously classified as a church, it's just an empty building at this point. So our trim notice is the same assessed value as last year on amount, but that created a $5,000 plus tax bill that we will, you know, we.
Will the new value be increased over the assessed value, or will you actually lower the value?
No, it will be substantially higher than what's there
That's what I
now.
was thinking.
Yes, sir.
And just for the record, I doubt, that 5,000 is not Port Ritchie taxes, that's your full tax bill, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
that's-
I'm sorry,
the lion's share of that doesn't come.
That's a trim notice, that's a trim notice from Pasco County.
We need to get that back. That's our money.
We're trying to Bob's trying to recapture taxes.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Usually when you have that type of property with the RVs and the boat.
Sean?
Does it help?
Yes.
There you go.
Usually when you have that kind of property and you have the RVs and the boats, there's water usage where they clean and they fill up their water tanks and wash the boat off. Has that been calculated in the water usage?
We have discussed that with the utility piece of the city, and we also did studies. They took some numbers from across the street, but we're using across the street as well. And we've come up an estimate of water use. It's very minimal. We do provide a hose, and we do provide faucets and hoses for people that might want to rinse their boat or might want to wash off something. And it's very, very minimal people that do that. But it is part of our calculations that we've done for the water use. Yes, ma'am. It's very minimal.
Any other questions from the board?
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. At this time, if there's anyone from the public who'd like to speak regarding this matter, I'll listen. If there's not, I'll close it to the public.
Just state for the record, Mr. Poole, that I presume you're accepting the package you got as the applicant's package, and he doesn't need to hand in another copy, so that's your record.
Sure. For the record, the packet that was provided to the board, we are accepting as the applicant's packet. Second. Do I need a motion for that, Jim?
No, you don't.
Okay, great. Any other questions or concerns?
No, one question is for the, just to be sure, I guess to Veronica, that you said you received many calls on the subject. Was there any of the phone calls or letters or anything from the apartment complex to the south? Did you share any concerns about it?
No, there was no concern about it.
No? Okay.
It's a pretty substantial buffer with that little lake there, right? Do I have any motions or more discussion from my board?
I have a motion to approve.
Is there discussion? If not, do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have any other motions on the table? Like the one that we can use to go home? Do
Motion to adjourn.
I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You want to make a motion to oppose?